We come here to the world under the same impression, which is that the perceivable world in which we've now found ourselves maintains inherent causal power. As such, we recognize ourselves inherently as an effect of this causal world. So, in the first years of our lives, we adopt this set of rules in which we fall. It could be referred to as a belief structure. It's an ongoing game that precedes us. So we've come to a place where the stakes are high, as we are totally dependent upon others for our basic needs, meaning food and water and protection. And of course, the fourth and most overlooked basic need, loving attention. So in this situation, which we've all been in as children, as babies, growing up, all the way up till adulthood, so to speak, we perceive the world to have inherent creative power, causal power. Thus, we perceive ourselves as an effect of that world. So in this experience, which I call the passive experience, or the first chapter of life, or the sleep, or slavery, or however you want to refer to it, but in that understanding, that natural understanding, we identify ourselves as an effect. As such, we create for ourselves a chaotic situation wherein we don't really have full control over our daily, moment-to-moment, ongoing experience, because we are the effect of the world. So we place our identity itself into the hands of secondary causes, right? We identify with our culture, our race, our gender, our body type, our appearance, education standards, our intellect. We want to outrank other people in terms of our socioeconomic prestige and whatnot. So we identify with all these categories or channels, so to speak. So we have a little deck of channels that we sort of identify with, and that's how we get what we want as we go through life in the first chapter. We experience pleasure through these things, and we experience pain when these things are taken away. We get what we want. We get that reward in that channel. We attain what we want. Sometimes what we want doesn't find its way into our lives in a tangible way, so we experience pain at the non-attainment of that goal, be it whatever, money, a person, a situation, a job, anything, a position on a sports team. When you're growing up, you feel left out. Anything. It could be a ranking in your class, a grade on a test. Since we place our identities into those things, we are subjected to the outcome of the attainment or non-attainment of those channels with which we have identified. So this is the tumultuous experience, the natural state as we lift off the ground and cruise into the higher echelons of experience, what we refer to as adulthood. So as we're off the ground, we go through childhood, and as we all know, it's chaos, pure chaos. You are screaming, crying, you're hysterically happy, you're just obscenely, agonizingly in anguish, sad, you cry, you laugh, it's a chaotic situation when you're a kid, but things balance out when you get a little bit older, ideally, and eventually, hopefully, we learn to recognize that we are actually none of these channels to which we have have so long identified. We are actually not the channel at all, not one channel or another. We're none of these channels that we've identified yet. At the same time, we are all of them, because we are, in fact, the signal itself. We are that unseeable truth that is providing this entire experience of life. We are the signal itself. We are the eternal light, the only thing that has existed, and that is love. So we are this thing. We are this thing, this only thing that exists. So as that thing, we come into the world forgetting that we are that thing. And so we create shadows in our life. We create limitations in our life, in our identification with these secondary causes, be it your body type or your your culture, your nationality, your religion, your race, your anything. You identify with these things that you come into the world with, right? You fall into this situation. You got a body, you got a place that you live in, you got a house, hopefully, you've got a family, you're taught all these things, and you identify as this construct. These are all channels. You're none of these things that you think you are. So we go through that first chapter of our lives identifying with these channels of ignorance, and eventually we wake up to see that we are actually that eternal light itself, or the signal itself, which gives birth, life to every moment, to this whole entire perceivable universe. This is coming to know yourself. So you don't know yourself when you come into the world, but eventually you do. Eventually you know yourself. You come to know yourself. What is that? You realize and you recognize that you're none of these channels of ignorance, but you're actually the signal itself. Your identity is a creative force, the only causal force that exists and that has ever existed. Thus, you become a life-giving entity. You become a causally determining force in itself. So the whole dynamic shifts. You don't perceive the external world anymore as an inherently causal or creative power. You don't perceive it as having any inherent causal power. You actually see yourself as the only causal power that really exists. And so then you become this, your identity then becomes not something perceivable at all, but actually something not perceivable. And it becomes something completely creative and life-giving in itself. So once you make that shift and start identifying with the primary cause as the primary cause, then you begin to be able to create the kinds of experiences that you would wish to have, and you begin to be able to shape your experience in an active and ongoing manner. Whereas before, your experience was contingent upon the attainment or non-attainment of certain objects of desire, people, places, things. That was how you gauged whether or not it was a good day or it was a bad day. So now it becomes, as the primary cause, that each moment is really an opportunity to guide yourself into a state of consciousness of your highest preference. So the practice, the work, the transformation, the battle, the war that takes place after this awakening is the period wherein base metals are transformed into gold. And so you get to retrain yourself how to live life to the fullest, and how to experience heightened states of consciousness, and how to guide yourself into the states of your highest preference. So this is only really, you're only really able to do this after you've awakened to know yourself as the primary cause itself, which is all of our identities. We are simultaneously completely unlike each other in every possible way, and exactly like each other in every possible way. So the middle of the road, really, when you identify with these categories or these channels, is when you say, oh, I'm kind of like these people, and I'm kind of not like these people, and you sort of categorize these groups, and you put yourself in certain groups. So I'm a white male, middle class, college graduate, I like rock music, I have long hair and tattoos. Okay, so I'm, like these guys, right? No, I'm not like any of these guys, but I'm also exactly like these guys 100%. So, but that applies to everybody else in the world, regardless of whatever language they speak or whatever they happen to believe about themselves, whether they're awake or not. I'm exactly like everyone and not like anyone else at all simultaneously. So that is really how you view yourself after you've awakened to know yourself as the primary cause. And so under this scenario now, life becomes far, far more interesting, because you don't fall into the pitfalls of this illusion of two separate things, being you and the world. You recognize yourself as the world. So you recognize everything as just a reflection of you. So you're creating this experience as you go along, and guiding yourself, your consciousness, into states that you prefer to experience. And what happens is under this scenario, you radiate an alertness, an awakeness. So you don't really run into the same pitfalls that you would have before, because you're totally asleep and you're just bouncing up against other people that were totally asleep too. So you're able to really guide yourself in a much more healthy manner, and of course it's an adventure still. I mean, you're still in a body, you're still here, you're not completely transformed or ascended, so to speak. You're still here and you're still immortal. You're still you're not immortal, but you have a body that's going to die. And so you have to feed it. You have to have some way to get those needs met. You have to have shelter. You have to provide for the body. So you got to do work. And you go through this life, and it's struggle. But at least you know yourself, and at least you can guide yourself into the experiences that you prefer to have. Whereas before, you were being guided by these essentially brainwash that you fell into when you were a child. You were born into this belief structure, and you've been taught that you need to do X, Y, and Z, and so you spend your life trying to accomplish X, Y, and Z. And if you live your life that way, it's just, look, it's not tragic, because everyone's going to go through this whole experience in this round or the next. So I don't pity anyone that's fallen asleep their whole life. I don't judge anybody for wanting to, it's beautiful in a way, wanting to have these materialistic, profit driven on the corporate side, diamonds and cars and all this stuff. Not billionaire class, but still millionaire class. People want to be in the millionaire class, and that's just this materialistic goal that we put into our brains that we need to achieve. And we really don't. It's really about knowing yourself, providing for your basic needs, and being able to guide yourself into the highest states of experience, and then riding out this mortal wave that we're in. We've got a body, and it's about riding out this experience and becoming a better surfer of this experience, or a shaper of this experience. And you grow in love. You grow in your capacity to love yourself. You grow in your capacity to love each other, and not just in word, not lip service to love. This is deep feeling deeply in regarding the core nature of other people, even when facing their ignorance. So we grow in our ability to express the only reality, which is love. And so we're here to break through this sleep state, this slavery of the idea that the world itself has inherent causal power, which it doesn't. So then we know ourselves as the only causal power. Okay, great, we wake up. Okay, now we transform. We actually demonstrate that we actually want to we want to live this way. We want to practice it moment to moment. We want to guide ourselves more than we want anything else in the world. We want to learn how to love deeper. We want to learn how to be as free as possible. We want liberation. We want ecstatic states of consciousness. We want unity. We want to shatter the ideas of division in ourselves that we've been taught to believe, which is natural to this experience. It comes as natural as babies cry. And so we come to know ourselves, and then we get better and better at it, and just experience life freer and more love, and then the body dies, and that really is out of the hands of everybody. So no one should think about that for 1 second, but it should be a very motivating factor for everyone, because you never know. So you have to approach each day and each moment as if, hey, this might be the last one. And, you better be as free as possible and love as deeply as possible, because, it could be over at any point. And that's not dark, it's just the truth. If you have 30,000 days on this planet, then you basically live to be, over or about 90 years old or something. It's like 84, I believe. So 30,000 days. Well, that's really not that much time if you think about it, because, when you're 30 years old, you've already hit 12,000 days. So, after that, you've only got maybe another 18,000 if you're lucky. And days go by fast. So if you think you're here forever, if you are under the impression that you can just keep procrastinating on this growing up, this inevitability, then you're in denial. And that's fine if that's where you need to be for now, because I get it. I've been there, and it's part of the process. But eventually, you're gonna come to know yourself. And my hope for anyone is that moment comes sooner than later. There are many factors that can stall the advance of one's evolution, and those are myriad. Drugs and alcohol, getting stuck on pills, getting stuck on whatever. I don't want to name specifics, but there's all kinds of pills out nowadays that people just get trapped into, and they fall into these traps of addiction, seeking out their loving attention in the form of whatever. And eventually we have to all become our own primary providers of our basic needs for survival, which are food, water, protection, and loving attention. So, loving attention is simply just being a guide into positive, life-giving, love-based states of consciousness. And if we don't have that when we're children, then we die. And so we need it just as much as we need food, water, and protection. So how come when we're adults we don't recognize that we need to be our own provider of loving attention as well, in addition to food, water, and protection? So really it's about becoming an adult, waking up, becoming an adult, being your own guide of consciousness, going more and more deeply into love and forgiveness and unity and, ecstatic states, just freedom. So that really is ultimately where everyone is headed, regardless of how persistent their sleep appears. It doesn't really matter what the conditions are. It just matters about your individual, non-physical composition and your journey. It's very, very independent and unique on a case-by-case basis. It's really not my position or anyone's position to point their finger and say, well, this is why you're doing this and this is why you're doing this. Maybe you are using drugs and alcohol to reach some state, because you're exploring that idea, and that's how you need to get to the state that you need to experience. My belief is that there really are no mistakes. So, but at the same time, we're creative individuals, and we do influence each other. If my heroes and had not written the books they had or said the words they had, then I wouldn't be able to use language as I do, or have the ideas of truth that I have, or it's really a lineage of wisdom. And so my hope for anyone is that they seek out that wisdom and learn to apply it in their lives. Otherwise, we're just like animals, and we just go through life on survival mode, under the impression that we're living life to the fullest because we have these materials of sense that are totally arbitrary. You know, my 400 square foot apartment, I feel like it's a 4,000 square foot mansion, and I truly feel that way. There is no difference in my experience here than there would be if I had a 4,000 foot house that was decked out with all the whatever, you know. I know that for a fact. So, you know, whatever masks, you know, you're putting on, my hope is that you take them off and recognize who you are. You know, because unless you do that, then you will not be able to creatively craft your experience into however you want it to be, because you will be at the mercy of secondary causes, channels of ignorance, you know. So, but really it's all an adventure. Ultimately it's all an adventure. And the darkest times are as essential for one's awakening as the best times, or even more essential. Because we have to go through those challenges and the stress and the difficulty in order to want to live the best way possible. And unless we want to live the best way possible, then we will not seek out the wisdom that will enable us to live in the best way possible. To be free.